Hello, hello, good people. It's your sister here, Reverend Jocelyn, and I'm so excited to be here with you for this special event. And if this is your first time tuning in, I'm going to encourage you to hit that subscribe button. I'm going to invite you to do that a couple times throughout our time together. But tonight we are here for a special event that I am co-hosting with a sister who you're going to get a chance to meet, a very special sister who you're going to get a chance to know in just a minute. But before I go there, let's talk about why we are here. We are here for the mind, body, and spirit reset. Because listen, you don't have to wait until the new year to reset your mind, your body, your spirit. And so you're going to learn a lot of great information during our time together today. Now, for those of you who are just getting a chance to know me for the very first time, let me take a moment to introduce myself. Again, my name is Reverend Jocelyn, and I have a nice background that blends the mental health field and faith. I have a master's degree in social work, a master's degree in theology, and I was able to build upon that to create a national Christian trauma healing ministry where we offer Christian counseling, we provide Christian trauma healing groups, and I also have been blessed to help coach other women in answering their call to ministry. So it's a special passion of mine. And when I connected with my sister Sofia, who you're going to get a chance to meet, and I was learning more about what she was doing, I love the fact that she is all about that life when it comes to health and fitness and nutrition. And so I said, Sofia, you know what we got to do? We got to do a mind body reset collaboration. And she was on board. And so she's actually going to join the stage and she's going to be talking with us about the process of getting your body, your health right. And so Sofia DeMartino, thank you, sister, for being here. And you could take away the stage.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a great event and an opportunity to connect with you and to connect with everyone out there about what is really, really important to me. So as you mentioned, my name is Sofia. I am a human performance coach, and it is my joy to work with women to achieve to the best possible outcome of their genetic potential by building strength from the inside out. I have been working in the health industry for a long time. And when I say the industry, I have been working in public health. Now, before I actually worked in public health, I spent about 2 years working for a massive global life insurance company. And my job at that company was to do contestable death claims. That is to say, I had to read through the insured's last 10 years of medical records and the death certificate, and then compare that to their application and see if there was anything in their records that they should have mentioned to the insurance company when they signed up and didn't. Now, if those two things didn't match, I was to work with our staff doctor and the legal team to determine if we would still be paying out that policy. That was my job every day in, day out, 50 hours a week. After a while, I started to notice some patterns in the data. For example, if someone passed away due to obesity, their death certificate would often say cirrhosis. Cirrhosis, like of the liver? Yes, I didn't know at the time, because I wasn't raised with lots of information about nutrition, that sugar is metabolized by the liver just like alcohol. And over time, too much sugar can lead to cirrhosis of the liver. When I discovered this, it sent me down a rabbit hole. Like most of us, I've lost loved ones to food-related illness, and I was raising kids. I wanted my kids. I wanted to learn how I could show up as my best self for my kids and for me. I went on a research binge. This became my obsession. I read everything I could get my hands on. I learned everything I could, but I'm going to be so real with you. Nothing prepared me for having to take that theoretical knowledge and then actually live the process of losing weight myself. Now, when I had my first 2 kids, I was really young. When I say really young, I mean like 16, 17. I gained maybe 10 or 15 pounds each time, and it all just kind of fell right off after they were born. I didn't have to think about it much. Now, when I got pregnant with my 3rd child, over 10 years later, having your 3rd child is different. Having a baby when you're a decade older is different. I did not gain 10 pounds. I didn't gain 15 pounds. I gained 80 pounds with my third child. You know how people say, oh, you're all baby, you're all baby. I was not all baby. I was mostly cake. I had gained 80 pounds, and she had the nerve to come out a completely normal 8-pound baby. Just a normal sized human being. She did not weigh 80 pounds herself. It was a mess. Now, the weight did not just fall off the way that it used to, but I was determined that I was going to figure this thing out. And let me tell you why. Very early in my pregnancy, someone who was in the room with me called a family member to tell her that I was going to have a baby. Now, this family member didn't know I was in the room and could hear everything that they said. When she found out I was having a baby, she didn't say, a baby, this is so exciting. We're going to have a baby in the family. She said, Sofia's going to get big and fat. You know how when you have a customer service job, they'll tell you to smile because the customer can hear your smile over. I could hear her smiling. And I resolved in that second that not only was I going to lose the weight, when I was physically able, I was going to get in better shape than I had ever been in my life. So as soon as I could, I set to work. I was power walking through the neighborhood, and I was doing sit-ups, and I was eating less, and I stayed out of the ice cream. And I thought if I just do all the same stuff that I did before, this will be perfect, and I'm going to look amazing in like no time. And so 6 months went by, and the scale didn't really move the way that I thought it was going to. I was really tired, and not just like the baby woke me up last night tired. I was really, really tired. My body changed, but not in the ways that I expected. I was weaker. I was a little smaller, but I wasn't toned or strong. I was just kind of mushy. I decided it was time to go back and do some more research and really build a strategy. And this is when I developed the habits that would become the Blueprint Body Protocol. The Blueprint Body Protocol is built on metabolism, on macros, on movement, and on mindset. But today we're just going to focus on one specific area, and that is metabolism. After 35, our metabolism starts to shift. And it's not your fault. It just comes with age. Your hormones, your muscle mass, and your stress response are evolving. Estrogen starts to go down. Cortisol starts doing the most. That's your stress hormone. And if you're not actively building or maintaining muscle, your body starts to lose it. And that slows down your burn rate. It slows down your metabolism. So if you've been thinking what worked before just isn't working now, you're not wrong. It's not just willpower, it's biology. How many of you have tried just eating clean or cutting calories lately and then finding out that you feel more tired, less toned, and still just kind of stuck? Here's the thing. Your body's designed to protect you from starvation. If you restrict your intake too much, it slows your metabolism down to conserve energy. And that's why a lot of those crash diets can actually backfire, and you tend to gain more weight back than you lost in the first place, especially when your hormones are already affecting your energy levels. For those of us who came up in the Y2K era, we watched celebrities and supermodels be vilified in the media for being too fat, including 19-year-old Beyonce, who wrote Bootylicious as a response. The standard of beauty being pushed on all of us before we had fully developed our own self-perception was incredibly unhealthy. It wasn't strong, and it often bordered on sick. I remember girls in my high school who were doing that cayenne pepper and honey thing. I don't know if you remember this too, but they would like not eat all day, and they would be drinking cayenne pepper and honey and lemon, trying to kill their appetite, even though a lot of them were in sports too. When you're not getting enough nutrients and you're doing physical activity, your muscle will actually break down. These girls were 15 years old, and they were already doing damage to their bodies. Enough of the punishment. We aren't going to be starving. We are going to be fueling the results that we actually want to see. So there are a few things that you're going to want to do. The first one that's super important is prioritizing protein. After 35, Muscle is harder to maintain, and muscle is your metabolic engine. You want to build lean skeletal muscle. If you're not getting enough protein, you're literally starving your metabolism. In the macros part of Blueprint, I show my clients exactly how to calculate the protein target for your goals and provide tools to make sure you can hit it consistently. You want to balance your blood sugar. That midday crash, those sugar cravings, the mood swings, it's not just me, right? It's not just being tired. It's your blood sugar being dysregulated. Once you learn how to eat, what to eat, and when to eat, this will begin to stabilize. You need to stop under-eating. Yes, really. Most of the women that I work with aren't eating too much. They're actually eating too little. That sends the body into that preserve and store mode. It's trying to save you. And it can be super hard to know for sure exactly how much you're eating because so much of it is unconscious. Throughout the day, we're grabbing things, we're snacking, right? So keeping a food diary can really help you understand how your snacking and meals add up at the end of the day because it is cumulative. Inside the Blueprint protocol, we teach you how to reverse this safely without gaining fat. This is your metabolic foundation. When you think about your total outcome, 80% of your total outcome has to do with what you eat and when you eat it, and only 20% has to do with your physical output. Your nutrition is critical to your metabolism working for you and not against you. So to recap, you are not broken. Your metabolism isn't done for. You just need a new strategy. There are so many factors that can impact our overall health, and a big one is our environment. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not just talking about where you live. I'm also talking about who shares your space throughout your whole life and how they impact you. Maybe you found yourself in situations where you felt powerless or unheard. Maybe you lost a job that had become part of your identity. Maybe a relationship that was supposed to be forever didn't stand the test of time the way you thought it would. Sometimes we take these experiences. Sometimes we even take the things that other people have said to or about us, and we start to internalize it. We start to say these things to ourselves. You don't deserve becomes I don't deserve. You're no good becomes I'm no good. They didn't show up for me becomes I don't show up for myself. It can be so isolating. And when you also carry that caregiver identity, sometimes you keep putting your own needs on the back burner to make sure everybody else is taken care of. That chronic stress buildup is toxic. The emotional toll impacts your physical health too, whether it's sleep or weight gain or heart disease. Prioritizing yourself is not selfish. And taking the time to overcome the emotionally painful life experiences that often lead to self-sabotaging choices will serve you far better than putting yourself last on the list. I've been on this health journey a long time, and I'm going to be the very first to tell you it is not always linear. A few years ago, I packed up my whole life and moved across the country after a difficult divorce to rebuild my life. I started working for a new company, and I learned really quickly that the pace of life here in DC is not the same as the pace of life in Iowa. Everybody here was throwing themselves into their work, and so I decided I was going to throw myself into my work too. I mean, that's what we do here, right? On the very first day of December, I walked into the office, and they called everybody into the conference room, and they said, "Today's your last day. You have 20 minutes to collect your belongings." And every employee lost their job 24 days before Christmas. I went home that day in shock. When I got up the next morning and looked around, I realized that all my plants were dead. I hadn't spent much time with my daughter with all the work I was doing, and I didn't recognize who I saw in the mirror. I had gained some of the weight back. My clothes didn't fit how they used to. I didn't wake up with energy. I woke up still exhausted. I had stopped prioritizing my health, and instead I'd been prioritizing a job that had sent me home with 20 minutes notice on the day the mortgage was due. I knew it was time to reset. It started with building habits. It started with recentering, on the pillars of the blueprint: mindset, metabolism, macros, movement. I didn't know if I could do it at 40 like I did it at 30. I did know that if I stuck to my strategy and planned the work and worked the plan, I'd at least be moving in the right direction. Over a year later, at this big age, I've been blessed to return to the physical strength and health that I had before. As soon as I got those abs back, baby, you couldn't tell me nothing. Joyce Sunada said, if you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness. Sunshine, it is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. I am so excited that I get to work with people every day to achieve the best that they can with their genetic potential. And I so appreciate the opportunity to talk with all of you tonight. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to Jocelyn, who is going to, she is a wealth of information. The first time we ever met, I knew this lady's something special. So thank you so much for sharing your stage with me.
Absolutely, Sofia. That was amazing. I was shouting backstage as you were sharing your story. And please do tell people if they're watching right now, like what they should find at your website.
Absolutely. So if you head to the blueprintacademy.com, what you will find there is a sign up for the Fuel Better webinar. I run you through an hour talking literally just about how are we going to break down our plate? How are we going to strategize so that our metabolism is working for us and not against us? That is key.
That is key. I hope you all take advantage of that. Be sure to earmark that website, write it down, and we'll show it again later. But Sofia is a wealth of knowledge, and she lived it. Y'all felt it in her story. And so, Sofia, I'm so glad that you're here. We're going to continue our conversation a little bit. You covered that health part. Now I'm about to get into the mind and spirit. And then we're going to do some talking afterwards. That sounds good? All right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. So we heard from Sofia, right? Her story of navigating different challenges in life. And how many of us know that life be lifing sometimes? But sometimes it's beyond just a struggle. Sometimes we experience trauma in our lives, and it can impact us in ways that we don't fully understand. I recognize that even in myself. As a trauma survivor, sexual trauma in my early 20s, I remember feeling so ashamed, not wanting to talk to anybody about it. And similar to Sofia, but for maybe different reasons, I threw myself into work to avoid the pain. I worked full time at my church. And here's the thing. When you work 50, 60 hours, a lot of times you're celebrated for it by the people you work. Like, oh, they're dedicated, they're committed. But see, your girl was over here running herself ragged, keeping herself busy, so she really didn't have to deal with the pain. So I wore the mask of performance, is what I call it, a mask where I'm just performing for everyone else, numbing myself out. That was how I was dealing with my trauma. And I bring that up because when we all experience something that is very painful, I'm talking about life-shattering painful, it can cause the effect of trauma. So let's define this. Bruce Perry, in his book, What Happened to You, he gave this definition that I think is a good one to get us started. He says that trauma is the effects of emotional shock. Okay, again, trauma is the effects of emotional shock. And when we think about that, oftentimes when we hear the word trauma's thrown around a lot nowadays. You know, people can say, oh yeah, I'm traumatized, by being in traffic. Okay. No, but trauma for real, trauma is something where it can change you. And SAMHSA defines trauma with 3 E's. Okay, they talk about the event, which is what many of us think of, like the abuse, like the divorce, like the betrayal, which can cause you to be traumatized. So we have the event, but we have to look at how that event is experienced, okay, by an individual, which is the second E. And then we look at, okay, after the event is experienced in a certain way that causes horror and fear, that can leave us with the effects of trauma. I want to bring before you a story that's also in the book that I mentioned earlier by Bruce Perry, where he describes an event that causes trauma. He talks about a fire breaking out in an apartment complex. And when this fire is blazing, there's a little 10-year-old boy, and he sees the blaze and he's afraid. He doesn't know if he's going to live or not. And finally, the firefighter comes into the rescue and takes the boy out to safety, and he survives. But he's totally traumatized by this event. Rightfully so, right? Okay, then we have another boy who's also 10 years old. He is in the same apartment complex, but he's a little further from the blaze, and he's looking at the fire, and he's like, oh man, this is super cool. I've never seen a fire up close and personal before. Total different experience for the same event. And then we finally have the firefighter on the scene. And this is another day at the office for the firefighter. So it's no big deal for him because he deals with it every day. We have 3 different people. Same event, experienced differently by all of the people. Only one is left traumatized with the effects of the event. So when we think about now how trauma influences our lives, many of us have had events that took place that left us with intense fear, horror, helplessness that has caused us to experience trauma. Now, let's bring it back to our theme of today, because when we experience these effects, it shows up in different ways. I shared with you that for me, the effects of experiencing trauma was working all the time, some poor decisions in relationships, which I know some of us understand that well. Yeah. So those are some of the effects that I had. Self-sabotaging and, low self-esteem. It would show up in those ways. But for other people, some of the effects we might see is reliving the trauma all the time, okay, by nightmares or flashbacks or talking about it all the time. Another thing we might see is avoiding reminders of the trauma, which kind of gets us into ways in which people might avoid it, like working all the time, overeating to numb the pain. So we might overeat, we might undereat, not eat at all. We might find ourselves numbing the pain with an addiction of some sort. Like it could be drugs, it could be drinking, it could be that retail therapy. How many of you all know about that retail therapy? Okay, maybe I'm coming down your street. These are some things that could be like a way in which we just numb the pain so we don't have to deal with our stuff. And then we also see sometimes that people who have experienced trauma, they're on alert all the time. They on 10. It's like they're expecting the shoe to drop. They're expecting something to go wrong. They're expecting bad things to happen. They wig out when someone steps on their shoe or cuts them off in traffic. They got PTSD symptoms, or their stomach is hurting when something happens. Like you have physical ramification. These are effects of trauma. And I've learned in working in this field for so many years, there's a number of people walking around in your office, in your church, in your community, in your group who are behaving out of their trauma. And they are not living to their full potential. They're not enjoying life because they are not even fully aware of why they're behaving the way they're behaving. Oftentimes people say, oh, that's just so-and-so. That's just her personality. Really? Her being bitter and like angry all the time at the world is her personality? No, I think that could be the result of trauma. And so we see that a lot of times in our lives. And here's the other thing that I've learned about trauma. Trauma not only disconnects us from ourselves, but it also can disconnect us from others and how we see God. It disconnects us in our faith, which brings forth the spiritual piece. When I say disconnect, when we experience a traumatic event, oftentimes it affects our body in different ways. And we also see how we engage with other people. I might be really protective of my space. I might not trust people again because of the trauma disconnecting me from others. And then God, I might be mad at God about what happened. I might be struggling in my faith as a result of what happened. So we see this all the time. where people who are carrying these burdens of trauma, they feel disconnected in a number of ways. It impacts their mind, their body, and their spirit, sometimes their faith. So here's the thing that I've learned, because we talked about all this trauma, but I want us to leave on a high note as we engage in this topic. Even though trauma disconnects us from ourselves and from others and possibly God, we can find reconnection and healing through healthy relationships, right? Through healthy relationships and safe environments where people care about us, where people show us another narrative, right? Where people journey with us, and maybe it's in a faith community, maybe it's through a Christian counselor, maybe it's through people who can just hold space for you, to allow for you to cry, to lament, to share your tears. So I encourage you, if you have found yourself at a place where you've never shared your story, never really talked about what happened, one of the first things that I want you to lean into is saying, who can I find that's safe for me to begin to share my story? You're never meant to carry what happened to you by yourself, and running from it is and suppressing your pain. Get this, suppressed pain is not healed pain. And so we have to get to the point in our journey where we learn to talk about even the things that are painful in safe and sacred spaces. I also have learned that my faith is what's kept me from going some places I didn't need to go. And so this is where, if you're able to find someone who can intersect your faith, if you are a believer watching right now, and to show you, okay, God is present. God cares about you. God wants you to heal, but God can use people to help you in that process. Then you can eventually begin to peel back that onion of your trauma, one layer at a time. Healing is work, but I want you to know that you are absolutely worth the work. And you don't have to do it alone. And so if you are watching right now and you realize that maybe one of the reasons why you might struggle with overeating is because you numbing yourself out. I mean, who doesn't love a tub of Haagen-Dazs ice cream after a bad day and some cookies, put that syrup on top, all that, because you're numbing out the pain. I get that. We all have had our ways of doing it, but there's other ways to navigate that and release the pain that's safe, that's healthy for you. And so I encourage you, as I'm doing all this talking, to visit. First, subscribe. I hit the wrong button. Subscribe. But I also want you to visit our website at faithonthejourney.org for some healing resources. There you'll find we have a team of Christian counselors available to support you. We offer healing retreats for your community. We just want to support you as it relates to your journey of healing, so you don't have to continue to do it alone. All right, so that is my segment, and now I am about to bring my sister back to the stage where we're going to have a dialogue. And whoever is watching right now, let us know who you are. Put comments in the chat. We're so glad you're here. All right, Sofia, so we got some people watching right now, and we're going to take some Q&A. If you have any questions for Sofia, for those who just joined, Sofia just shared her amazing testimony about how she was able to transform her entire life from a health standpoint. And she gave some good resources for you. And so she's here as a resource for you to ask questions. And so I'm going to pull any questions that you have up on the screen. But in the meantime, Sofia, is it cool if I ask you a couple questions to get us started?
Of course, I have one for you too.
Oh, okay. I can't wait. Okay, so I'll shoot my question
absolutely.
first. So Sofia, when we think about your journey of losing 80 pounds, what do you think?
Yep.
What do you think made the biggest difference for you as it relates to saying, okay, this is not just a diet. This is not just a thing. No, this is a lifestyle change.
So I will say, and I think this is the case for a lot of people, the messages that I got about what a diet looks like from older family members, from society, from the media, looked very different from what actually worked. So I was getting, you just think salads, you just have salad all the time, and that's diet, right? And that's how you do it. You just eat less. You just go out and you walk a lot, or like, you look, I'm an 80s baby. So spandex and jazzercise, right? Like that was that was the visual that came for me. And so one of the things that made a really big difference for me was understanding the importance of building muscle, understanding the importance of feeding that muscle and feeding your body for health in general, and not being concerned about the idea of becoming bulky by building muscle. It was about lifting. And in my head, lifting was just for like these jocks. It's for these big like men. And I didn't think about that as being something that made sense for women, or I thought about those teeny tiny little dumbbells, and that's how you do it. And also overemphasizing the importance of the physical aspect of it, when your nutrition is so much more important. I actually watched, I don't know if you saw this, there was a documentary recently about The Biggest Loser, and very early on, like maybe the first 10 minutes of the documentary, one of the trainers literally says, yeah, we didn't really need them to do all that exercise. We just thought it would make for good TV. It's not the most important part. And that was like mind-blowing for me to hear that.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And again, for those of you who have questions for Sofia and I, please be sure to put those questions in the chat and we'll be happy to answer those for you. But yes, Sofia, you said you had a question for me. Go ahead, sis.
I do have a question for you. So as I think you already know, I also read a biweekly column for a newspaper. And the column that I wrote one about a year ago, and I called it Hiding My Grief in the Grind. And it was far and away the most commented on, the most engaged with. I got the most like emails about it. It was the most shared that I have ever written. I think this is a huge issue for a lot of people because it's one of the, I mean, I call it a vice, right? But overwork can be a vice, but we reward it. So do you have any, was there anything that was particularly helpful for you in recentering and shifting those priorities so that your self-care was front of mind again?
I think I realized over broken relationships, after like being completely burnt out, I realized that I was putting a Band-Aid over a gushing wound, and it was not working. And I realized also that I needed some help, right? Because you can realize sometimes if something's wrong, something's like wrong, but I don't know what to do. And so I had to reach out and ask for help. And for me, from a mental health trauma side, that was me going to counseling and really sitting with someone and saying, okay, this is what happened to me 7-8 years ago. And I have been running from it, and I want to stop running because it's so tiring to continue to run and run from your pain like that. And you can't outrun it. That's the thing. You can mask it, but it's still there. And so for me, I think it was because I had hit that like low point. And, after you like self-sabotage so much and you feel all guarded and you see all the things that's a collateral damage, you realize, okay, yeah, something has to change. And, I think even in your field, Sofia, we see that sometimes you realize, hey, I've tried all the diets. I've tried all the quick fads, as it relates to losing weight, but it just finds its way back to me, even though I lost it. And so also realizing that it is okay to ask for help. It's okay to get a coach. It's, in fact, a good thing to get a coach who understands that this is not just a quick thing, but it's a lifestyle change, and they're willing to journey with you. Do you have any additional thoughts on that, Sofia?
I do. Yeah. I did also connect with a coach in my early days of my journey. You know, I went through that 6-month period of, I got this. I have 3 degrees. Nobody can tell me anything. And then I really had to kind of come to terms with, oh, I actually may not know everything that there is in the entire world. And I should probably lean on someone with more experience than me. Because, you know, you can read all the books in the world. You can watch all the everything you can get your hands on, but there's nothing like having somebody there to walk that journey with you and hold you accountable to the things that you say that you want.
Hey, you ain't lying about that, sis. That is so true. That accountability right there. When someone's saying, hey, like, where you at? You ain't at the gym. Or, okay, no, we're not going to eat that cake for breakfast. Like, we're not going to do that. Just having that accountability can help tremendously, you know? And so I think that also speaks to the point I was making earlier about community, how community matters, right? We can find ourselves, particularly in areas where we have shame, whether you have shame around like your body image, whether you have shame around like what happened to you, like as it relates to a traumatic event. You know, sometimes we find ourselves isolating ourselves from others and not wanting to ask for help or share that we're struggling. But that's the trick of the enemy. And I'm getting spiritual, but it's true. Like that's how the devil likes to work, to keep us isolated by ourselves, feeling like no one understands. When we get into community, expose that lie and say, hey, this is what's happening with me, you find out that there's a lot of other people in the room who have had, either they've had that similar struggle or they're going through it right now. And so I want to encourage those who are at this place in their journey where they're like, man, as for my health, I am tired of the fad diets. I'm tired of being on the struggle bus. I encourage you to reach out to Miss Sofia and grab some of those resources that she has on health and fitness. She's about that life. I've seen her do the work, you know. And for my people out here who have been struggling as it relates to traumatic events in your life, and you feel like you don't know what to do to get the help, well, make your way over to my website, faithonthejourney.org. We have a bunch of healing resources there to help you navigate this journey so you don't have to do it alone. So yeah, Sofia, I guess if I were to ask you one more question just about your path and your journey, like what is the word of advice that you would offer to, particularly I would say a woman who might be struggling with weight loss right now? She's tried all the things. She has, you know, really been trying to make a change, but it's hard and she's discouraged. What would you say to her right now?
One of the biggest things I would say is give yourself grace. This thing is not always linear. It's not always going to be this story with this exact timeline, exactly how you think it's going to go. So if you have to start over, remember, sometimes we all have to start over. That's okay. Reach out for support. Start that journey again. Get up the next day and try again. That's what life is all about.
I love that. So good. So good. You know, I think life is this journey of faith. Hence the name I gave my company, Faith on the Journey. We on this journey of faith. You know, get up every day, taking these small steps forward, knowing that, hey, as Sofia and I were talking about in a previous conversation, you don't have to wait until January 1 to change your life. You can make a commitment today to say, hey, I'm going to reach out and ask for help, whether it is starting counseling, whether it is hiring Sofia to be that fitness coach or joining a program. You can change your life today. So what is that step going to be to help you to renew your mind, strengthen your faith, heal your heart, heal your body? What is that one step that you can commit to making today? And for those of you who are maybe watching the replay, I want to encourage you to go ahead and let us know what that's going to be in the comments. Share with us. Be a part of the community by making a comment saying, hey, this is my one thing that I'm going to do after watching this episode. I also want to encourage anyone who's watching for the first time, go ahead and slam that subscribe button so that you can learn more about all the other great things that we are offering on this channel to support you in your healing journey, growing your faith, and becoming who God called you to be. That's it for our time together, Sofia. It has been an absolute pleasure, girl, talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great experience. I knew right away when we met. We just kind of clicked, and I'm so glad that we connected again.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Well, thank you all again for watching us live. And for those who've catching the replay, we got love for you too. Be sure to comment, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend, someone who needs it. So please bless them. And I will see you all again very soon. Take care, everyone.